Hello and welcome back to a new episode of Figure Battle, the series where I take a look at two action figures that have something in common, compare the features on both, and declare which is the better figure. Today it's a Third Earth Throwdown, with two villains from the Thundercats series, the evil mutant leader Raro and the demonic Mongor. Both of these figures come from the Super 7 Thundercats Ultimate series. I am not a completist on this series, but I have been picking up figures of some of my favorite characters from the original LJN toy line of the 1980s. Raro first appeared in the original Thundercats cartoon in the episode Feliner Part 1. He is a powerful general in the mutant army who is revered by Vulture Man, but despised by the reptilian Slithe. Slithe served under Raro as a cook in the kitchens for the mutant army before he arrived on Third Earth and started serving Mumra. Raro commands the powerful mutant ship the Rat Star, and his weapons of choice are his pair of rat's eye daggers, two curved psi-like weapons that have mystical properties, similar to the Thundercats' Sword of Omens. Raro's greatest weakness is his arrogance and overconfidence, as well as his reliance on his instruments of war. Without the Rat Star or his rat's eye daggers, Raro is quick to retreat. Raro was a recurring villain in the original Thundercats cartoon, appearing in 6 episodes, and he also appeared in one episode of the reimagined Thundercats animated series in 2010. Let's take a closer look at this figure. And I think obviously what they were going for with Raro's design is to mimic the stereotypical look of ancient conquerors of Asia like Attila the Hun and Genghis Khan. He does have a nice color scheme on his uniform, especially those gold highlights against the red and blue. Look very good. He comes with 2 head portraits, one closed mouth and one open mouth. I prefer the open mouth one. Both of them have that long whisker-like mustache. He has an alternate set of hands, an open hand and a pointy hand, as well as the 2 gripping hands to hold his weapons. For articulation, he's got neck movement and the head can move up and down slightly thanks to the ball joint. He's got shoulders that can go 360 thanks to this part of his uniform being flexible, and it's also partially detached, so you can move that shoulder around without worrying about tearing this piece off. He does have a bicep swivel. Elbows, of course, Super 7 only gives their figures single joints in the knees and elbows, and the wrists swivel around thanks to the hands being interchangeable. Despite being a bulky figure, he does have a cut in the waist, so you can move him around there. He does have hip movement out, as well as back and forth. And despite being a bulky figure and having that tunic, he does get a pretty good range of motion in the hips, thanks to this part of the uniform also being flexible. Single jointed knees, of course, that don't have much in range of motion because of the sculpt. That big bulky calf kind of comes up and crashes behind the thigh, and that's all you get in the knee movement. For ankles, they can go back and forth a little bit, and there's a bit of a ankle pivot as well. And lastly, his rat tail can swing side to side. His rat's eye daggers are well done. Some nice clean paint applications on those. Silver and gold with the green rat's eyes. And these come with 2 different energy effects to attach to them. There is a crackling energy effect that can go completely around the blades of the daggers, like so. And even though these energy effects are a flexible PVC material, I'm afraid that if you try to slide those on and off the blades enough times, you may see a little of that silver paint get worn on the blades. And there are shooting energy effects that attach to the eye of the dagger. So on each dagger you have a solid eye, and then if you flip it over, there's an eye with a hole in it. So you can plug in these energy effects to that hole. And here's what that looks like. So I really don't have anything bad to say about this figure. He looks good. He poses well for how I want to display him. He's got good accessories. He's really well balanced. I don't have a problem standing him up. He is certainly not going to need a figure stand. Despite his bulk, he is not going anywhere with those giant feet. Compared to the Super 7 Silverhawks figure I looked at a few weeks ago, I think this is a much better figure. Mongor only appeared in a single episode of the original Thundercats cartoon, in the episode titled, appropriately enough, Mongor. He was a demon that was trapped in an ancient tomb on Third Earth that was inadvertently released by the two cubs, Wily Kit and Wily Cat. Mongor has the ability to grow in power and size by absorbing fear. So when he was first released from his prison, he was about the height of the cubs, but as he fought the different Thundercats throughout the episode, he grew to about twice the size of Lion-O, although in some scenes he seemed a little bigger. The animation in the episode wasn't really all that consistent. Mongor's actual abilities, besides being able to absorb fear, were pretty ill-defined during the course of the episode. He seemed to be able to project all different types of energy and fire. He could manipulate matter. Basically, he could do whatever the plot wanted him to do. In the end, he was defeated by Lion-O, after Lion-O realized that the secret to defeating Mongor was to just not be afraid of him. Despite only appearing in that one episode, Mongor did receive a figure in the original Thundercats toy line from LJN. Mongor did not appear in the reimagined Thundercats series of 2010, but he did go on to have a lucrative career, appearing on album covers for heavy metal bands. I've always loved the design of this character. Very mythological. Obviously, he's based a bit on a satyr, half-man, half-goat creature, but he also resembles classic interpretations of demonic entities, like Baphomet. He comes with two head portraits, one with gritted teeth where you can see the pupils of his eyes. This is the one that came on him in the package, but I prefer this more screaming head with the pupilless eyes. Makes him look even more demonic. And when I changed out the head, I had to put gloves on because the points on these heads are extremely sharp. All the points on the long hair, the ears, the horns. If you try to put any pressure on these heads to change them out with just bare hands, you're probably going to draw blood because they are very sharp. He comes with 3 pairs of hands, so you get a nice variety of open hands, pointing fingers, gripping hands, and a closed fist. For articulation, he can turn his head side to side a bit, but obviously the long beard and the long mane of hair in the back is going to limit that. He's got 360 shoulders, bicep swivel, elbows, wrist swivel. He does have an ab crunch, which doesn't have much movement, but it's something. And despite his furry bottom half, he does have waist movement. I didn't think he would looking at the sculpt, but he does. Single jointed knees, which gets a bit more movement than Raro, and ankle pivot and rocker. There's not much on him as far as paint. Most of his parts are molded in the exact color that they are. It seems that's also true for the face. It looks like the horns and the face portrait are separate pieces that have been glued together. The only real paint I can see is on his fingernails and toenails, and the patch of hair that runs up his back. Despite not having a paint wash on him, I still think he looks good. There is a lot of fine detail in the sculpt of both his bare skin parts. There's a lot of detail in here sculpted in, as well as, of course, the fur parts on his lower body and his head and back. His weapon of choice is this scythe, which has a little bit of painted detail on the blade there to give it a little bit of depth. We have this very nice looking translucent flame effect that attaches to the scythe. like so. And that fits on there really well. And he looks pretty intimidating wielding that. And the joints in his arms are nice and tight, so he can keep that lifted up over his head if you want. And it's not going to slip back down. There are also these two crackling energy effects, which are sculpted to fit around his horns, like so. And none of the Super 7 figures actually come with instructions on how you're supposed to place all the different effects, but that seemed to make the most sense. Mongor is a classic looking monster or mythological creature design, so even if you don't collect Thundercats, if you collect fantasy figures in this 7-inch scale, and you can get him for a good price, I think he'd look great in any fantasy-based action figure collection. So now comes the hard part. Who do I pick as winner in this Third Earth Throwdown figure battle? Will it be mutant leader Raro or the demonic Mongor? Sorry folks, this might be a cop-out, but for me, this battle is too close to call because I really love both of these figures. So I'm going to leave this one up to the viewers. As soon as this video goes live, I will have a poll on my community page, asking you which of these figures you prefer, Raro or Mongor. So please click over to my community page and cast your vote. Let your voice be heard in the battle to free Third Earth from the forces of evil. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.